Hello, and welcome to the wonderful world of writing. I'm Laura Cotton, personal writing coach, and this is part 3 of the secret to successfully beginning your novel or screenplay. Now, as I discussed in parts 1 and 2, the secret to successfully beginning your novel or screenplay is pre-writing. And I previously discussed pre-writing in terms of plot and character. So today I am going to conclude the series with a discussion about pre-writing in terms of dialogue. Think about all the people that you know. Everyone speaks differently. There are 3 factors which determine the way a character communicates. Those include their background, so where they were raised, how they were raised, their cultural upbringing, their religious backgrounds, their age, their education. All of these things influence the way a character communicates. The second factor is the situation that the character is in. So for instance, if you're writing a story about a mother who is standing in line with her children at Disneyland, and it's a very hot day and they've been there for hours, that's going to be a very different story than if she were at home, just enjoying a leisurely afternoon with them. Or if you're writing a story about a husband who was recently fired from his job, he's going to speak to his wife very differently than if he were just promoted, isn't he? So the situation in which you place your characters plays a role in how they speak and how they communicate. The third factor is who they're speaking to. So, think about a teacher. She's going to talk to her class very differently than she would speak to a parent. You speak to your friends very differently than you would speak to a relative like a grandfather or a grandmother. So who your character is speaking to also influences the way that he or she communicates. Now, there are 4 pre-writing exercises that I'm going to share with you today. The first is become a dialogue spy. And what I mean by that is, you need to start listening to the way that people communicate with each other. And the best way to do this is to go out to a public place, like a Borders or a cafe or a restaurant, a place where you can easily hear other people's conversations and listen to what people are saying. Try to write down 3 different conversations that you hear that day and write down everything that is said exactly the way that you hear it. So if a person uses really a lot, or if they say like a lot, or whatever little phrases that they say, try to write those down. You may miss a word here and there, and that's fine. This is just an exercise. Then go home and pick out one of those conversations and try to turn it into something creative, like a story or something that interests you. The second pre-writing exercise is to rewrite conversations that you have had. Think about a conversation that you have had in the last week. Maybe it was a conversation that you had with your teacher about your grades, and you were very kind and courteous. Now imagine that same conversation if you had reacted with anger. Write that conversation. Remember, the key to successfully beginning any novel or screenplay is pre-writing. And with pre-writing, you need to make sure that you incorporate conflict. Conflict is extremely important to all forms of writing. So that is rewrite a conversation that you have had. You might also try rewriting a conversation you've had from another person's point of view, maybe the teacher's point of view. And as a more advanced exercise, try to turn that conversation into a conversation about something else. For instance, say you have a conversation that you had in the last week with a salesman about shoes. Now, try to turn that same conversation into a conversation about how lonely you are. Turning one conversation into another conversation is a very advanced writing technique, and it will enable you to start viewing your writing as something that can transform and is not always just a stable entity in itself. The third pre-writing technique is to create a conflict chart. Now, a conflict chart is something that I have created myself. All of these exercises are things that I have come up with. You won't find them in any book or any magazine, but they are available on my website if you click on the Wonderful World of Writing. So, this is an example of a conflict chart. And what you do is, on one side of the paper, you write topics. My topics were marriage, moving, and a party. In the middle column, you write a conflict or argument that could occur over the topic. So if the topic is marriage, I wrote, a guy wants to get married, girl doesn't. And then you write the worst time to have the conversation. The worst time, I pretended, was right before their trip to Hawaii. The second topic I came up with was moving. And I thought of a divorced father who had to leave his kids. And maybe the mother has custody of the children. The worst time to have the conversation is on the oldest child's birthday. The last topic I came up with was a party. And I said a teenager has had a party while his parents were away. And the worst time for them to have the conversation would be right after his parents have bought him a car. So his parents come back from Hawaii, the house is a mess, and they just bought him a car recently. So they're going to have quite an argument. So you can create your topics about anything you like, and you can come up with any argument that you like in any time that you want, really. This is just a way to get you thinking. And it's a really great exercise because what you're doing here is you are not only coming up with different story ideas, you're also imagining what the worst time to have the conversation would be. The last pre-writing technique that I wanted to share with you today is to write a monologue. I love theater, and I have always enjoyed going to plays, and I love writing monologues. Monologues are a fantastic way to get your character speaking. When you write a monologue, it is crucial that you think about who your character is speaking to. Remember, people speak differently depending on who their audience is. So, if you write a monologue about a young boy who recently got into trouble, he's going to speak very differently about what he did to his best friend than he would to his mother. To his best friend, he might boast about what he did and exaggerate it. To his mother, he might downplay what he did. So when you write your monologue, make sure that you're thinking about who your character is talking to. All monologues are addressed to a specific person in mind. Now, as a more advanced exercise, you could try writing the same story from a different character's point of view, like the mother's point of view. Or you could also try writing the monologue, but writing it in such a way that it is much more dramatic than what you originally came up with. So today, I talked about 4 different pre-writing techniques that have to do with dialogue. The first being become a dialogue spy. The second, rewrite conversations that you've had. The third is create a conflict chart. And the fourth is to write a monologue. So your assignment this week is to choose one of those 4 pre-writing exercises and to try it out for your own story. Remember, all of these exercises are just exercises. You don't have to use them in your story. You don't have to try to incorporate this dialogue into something else. This is all just for you, just to get you thinking about your characters and your writing. I hope you enjoyed watching this program today. Please visit my website at laurawriter.com and let me know how this exercise went for you. I would love to hear from you. And remember, there is no wrong way to write.